before we start with the topics, I think we have a couple of newcomers on this call, or at least one that I can say for sure. So, Sajad, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello,
Sajad.
am I audible?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm a newcomer to this community and so glad to be a part of this. And, myself, I'm Sajadas. I'm from India, Kerala, and I will be working on with the design part of the LAN layer 5. So,
Awesome.
Sajad, welcome.
thank you.
Nice. Good. Sajad, you've got, so of some of the tools that we use, sounds like you're going to spend some time in Figma. I've learned a lot about Figma from Austin, who's on the call as well. I was just practicing one of the things that he taught me about holding down the command key while you're resizing frames so you don't skew things. So just in case anybody else needed to know that, that's and then Navendi, Sahil Raja is on as well. I wonder if Mr. Raja has had a chance to introduce.
Yeah, hi all. So, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
I am a software development, like I'm working as a software development intern at MyData, and I'm looking forward to contribute to level like layer 5 Meshery. I have I don't have much knowledge about it right now, but I am going through it.
Nice. Sahil, fantastic. Did by the way, is it Sahil or Sahil?
It is Sahil.
Sahil. Okay, good. Oh, we were okay. Good. You just saved me from a dangerous path of mispronouncing. For good. Sahil, did you? I missed it. Did you say you said you're a software engineer, and then I think you said at somewhere. Where is that?
At MyData.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Very good. Nice.
Welcome, Sahil. Are there any other newcomers on the call? I don't think so. I see a lot of familiar names. So I guess we'll get started. Welcome everyone. This is the Meshery development meeting. Today is 12th May, and yeah, we are 6 over and we have 12 people on the call. So I don't see Jubril has joined. So I guess we'll move to Rudraksh to take from here. Yeah, Rudraksh, do you want to get started?
Yeah, sure. Am I audible?
Yeah, there is some background noise.
Yes. Okay, wait a minute.
Cool. I wonder if that wasn't background noise as much as it was a cable, an electrical, like a. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So how's
Yeah,
it
that's
now?
better. It's good.
It's good. It's good.
Great. So I'll share my screen.
Yeah, good.
Is it visible?
Yes. Yes, it's visible.
Great. So we have this image hub. If you don't know, image hub is an app it is a sample app which is used for testing WASM filters, and right now it can be deployed with console as well as the Istio service mesh. And the filter, the WASM filter, which ImageHub uses right now, it can be configured using a JSON object. Pranav did some work on it recently, so it can be added to the onward filter config for the rate limit filter. And when the apply onward filter for image hub operation is called, we can make a template, we can generate the template which contains that JSON object. So I'll show you that template which is used right now. Yes. So this is the currently used onward filter config for the rate limit filter. And right now it has a missing field here because we have not applied it here yet. This can look something like this, a simple YAML. I'll just open it up here. And here we have that JSON object encoded as a base 64 value. So the rate limit filter reads this value and it modifies itself. It modifies its behavior to apply logic at the endpoints of the image hub app. This is the JSON. So this is an endpoint, the pull endpoint, and the rule, rate limiter rule. These are the various subscription plans, and this is the query per second, the query per minute limit. So we are adding it to the onward filter config here, and that's what the PR is about. So what now?
Yeah. Who's got questions? I think one of the things that might not everyone might be familiar with, well, with this application, this sample filter. And so a little bit of background there.
So the image hub sample app, I told about it a little bit. Okay, I'll go again. Image hub. So this is image hub, and right now I'm not able to deploy it. I don't know, I can't access it using the UI, and it's the same with many of the other sample apps. I'm looking into it and I don't know, so probably I can't show you the running app right now, but I can show this with, I mean, when the config is applied. So I have Meshery running, and I have the adapter running as well already, because that takes a little time. So I deployed it and got it running, and I have even got Istio installed and running. So now I'll install the image of sample app. Just go here, and there we go. The pods are initialized. Now, if the app was running, the next step would be I would have shown with the UI. And that would have been done something like but it's not available right now, so sorry. And when we apply the configuration, we must need a sidecar must be injected because that's for any service mesh. And since we have labeled the default namespace, we gotta restart the pods.
So, Rudraksh, by the way, is part of what you're showing is a refactoring of the sample or this filter to work with book info as a sample app?
No, it's you remember the filter that Pranav demoed a few time back,
Yep.
like the image filter and the JSON config things.
Yep.
So it needs that the config for that filter, the onward filter YAML, which is the API on your filter API provided by Istio for configuring the bottom filters. And it needs that there should be this field which contains the JSON for configuring the endpoints.
Good deal.
Okay, so we are working on adding this to the config. It's not much, it's very little work, but yeah. And
Yeah.
we have them running.
So,
Then,
briefly, I know that, so how is this different from the operation that we have currently?
the current operation needs that you apply that JSON config manually, or else you won't have filtering. I mean, the QPSN thing, probably you won't have that.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I recall now that the configuration of the filter itself was statically defined and hard coded inside the filter, and that you and Pranav have worked to generalize the filter to make it more common purpose, more general purpose, and this is part of tying that off. Like you're bringing it back into Meshery, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, nice. That makes sense. So one of the things to do here, so it's nice that, so I'm going to Rudraksh, if it's okay, like if you, maybe I'll talk to a couple of things as you go through the rest of the demo.
Okay.
And just interrupt when you're ready. But so by the way, so you just deployed Image Hub as a sample app just now.
Yep.
Okay. And so maybe for my benefit and for everyone else's, we'll say that, so you've got a system that's running, you're running Istio, you have deployed a sample application. The application is called Image Hub. It's a ripoff of Docker Hub, you know, on purpose, because it was demonstrated at DockerCon, and because Docker Hub actually needs this kind of functionality, they have implemented rate limiting for how frequently you can pull images down. Unless you're a subscriber of Docker Hub, you can pull images down even more frequently. So they rate limit intelligently based on whether you're authenticated to Docker Hub, and if you're authenticated, whether or not you're a paying subscriber or not. And you get to pull images faster or not based on whether or not you're a paying subscriber. And so for Docker Hub, the engineers there, they had to write that logic into their application, into Docker Hub itself. And, that's fine, except in the future, as we all evolve how it is that we write applications and how we take advantage of intelligent infrastructure, you can hand some of that, those considerations to the infrastructure. You can place application level rate limiting that logic into an Envoy filter, into a WebAssembly filter, in this case, written in Rust. So Rudraksh, I didn't mean to, is he still with us? I think we lost Rudraksh, so he's coming back. But in this case, I'll share this a little bit to just help everyone with an understanding of what the work that's going on. So this is just a copy of a single slide. It's kind of busy, but what it's showing is that what Rudraksh is showing is a demo of using Istio. Istio uses Envoy as its data plane. Envoy is a popular proxy. Envoy is written in C++. It's represented by this pink, dark purple box here. And Envoy has plugins that, so you can, and one of the ways that it supports plugins is using a framework called Webassembly. And Webassembly has a lot of, what we won't like, it's a lot to say about WebAssembly, but it has a lot of characteristics similar to unikernels a bit, similar to Docker containers, actually. And as such, I expect this technology to continue to grow in its popularity and adoption. And but one of the plugin mechanisms is to write a custom filter and plug it into Envoy and have that filter evaluate requests, traffic requests that come through. And in this case, you can add a lot of intelligence in there. And so for the sample application and the filter that Rudraksh was demonstrating, it will look at those requests, grab the user's JOT, their JWT token, and look for a couple of pieces of information. It'll look for, well, one, at what level that user is, it'll look to see, one, is the user authenticated? One. Two, is the user subscribed to, and at what level? Like to the enterprise level, to the free tier. And based on that, it will start counting how many requests are made per second, per minute. It'll track that. And each request that comes through, it does a quick look, confirms whether or not, based on the current count, whether or not that user should be allowed to pull a Docker image in this case. This is something of a pattern. Like there are many, many applications that have endpoints that users, visit or send requests to. And there are many applications that want to provide like something of a class of service. So for the free tier, the unauthenticated users, their class of service is maybe rate limited to a certain lower level. For those that are at the enterprise level, maybe it's unlimited, just as fast as they can pull things. And so what Rudraksh and Pranav have been working on is generalizing this filter, this little purple icon, purple. And so this filter is written in Rust, and they're generalizing it and externalizing the configuration of like the fact that you want to look for certain things in the request, like the fact you want to look for a subscription, and the fact that if you find a subscription, you want to look for certain tiers, enterprise, team, free. And they're generalizing that so that eventually within Meshery's UI, which I'm hoping Gaurav might do a little bit of a preview toward today, that Meshery will help users manage filters and manage which applications get which filters. And more than that, what the specific configuration of those filters are, That's actually what Rudrock is showing. So with that, that's a great lead in into Gaurav, some of the work that you're doing on filters in Meshery's UI. Can we skip to you? Do you want to show the beginnings of what that is?
Yeah, sure. Can I explain from the code itself and
Sure.
from the issue itself? Because I'm facing some issues with my dev environment.
Okay,
Should I share my screen?
please.
So yeah, is it visible?
Yep. As a matter of fact, I think we'll start to train everyone on the call, including myself, to not ask that question and just assume and then let people interrupt when that's not the case. Yeah, it is. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the issue was I have worked on this add Meshery filters UI. So the current behavior was the serving Meshery CRUD for the WASM filters. So I'm not currently much aware of the CRUD and the WASM filters. So, but the desired behavior was creating a sorry patterns UI, filters UI, which was similar to the patterns UI. So what I have done here is, let me just show it from here. How can I move this? So here in the patterns UI, as we can see in the dashboard, so Meshery patterns and all the patterns name, upload timestamp, and in the view, yeah, and all the details were also shown here. So in the add filters UI, what I did just change the filters to change the patterns to the filters UI, so it might look similar to it, and change some endpoints of the patterns UI to the filters UI, so as it's visible now. Let me also try to show it from my dev environment if it's visible or it's posted. Yeah, I'm having trouble while hosting my localhost.
Okay. And do you know what this? Yeah, so you're having trouble building the UI, building Meshery itself.
Yeah. Mm.
Do you recollect
Then,
what the?
yeah, I was facing while connecting to the adapter. So yeah, Ditya also helped me in that, but the issue still persists.
You recall what the error is, or what you're trying
Yeah,
to?
it's not creating ping to the adapters. So when I click to the adapters, so it's saying error, it cannot be configured.
Gotcha.
Let me show you if it will get hosted locally.
Yeah, it could be the case that it's Meshery server is trying to connect to the adapters at a host name that it's not familiar with. So, yeah.
Yeah, so regarding the filters UI, so it is just similar to the patterns UI. Here only the Meshery pattern. So here, and what will be here is Meshery filters will be here.
Nice. So then, Gaurav. So does anyone have any questions for Gaurav? Does everyone get how users will start to be able to track, load and unload filters from Meshery's user interface?
So yeah, I can also explain what's the difference of the filter UI and the patterns UI. So The difference is it will only allow the user to specify a different file from the URL or the disk, and not it won't let the user to edit the files as it was in Patterns UI.
So, Gaurav, are there any, sorry, so today, which, well, I guess assuming that all of Meshery server's endpoints are available for filters, are there any aspects of CRUD that we would expect not to be working in the filter UI?
Not yet.
Okay. The one of the things that users can do when looking at a pattern is they can open it up and a modal will show.
Yeah,
like
they can specify a different file from a particular URL.
Okay. And so today they don't, you don't open up a modal and show them the filter, do you?
No, we don't open up a model for that.
Okay, got it. Good. Well, good. Well, you'll have to message about the specific error that you get when trying to connect to the adapter so we can
Yeah, sure.
yeah. Which it could be just, and maybe this is probably helpful for everyone as well, is that you see in your terminal, there's this adapter URLs. Adapter URLs equals Meshery local.layer5. Like it might be that your local machine, I mean, for sure, it probably doesn't know what Meshery local.layer5.io is.
Yeah, it's hosted. Let me just show it. So yeah, when I try to ping to my Kubernetes cluster, it is successfully pinging. But when I try to install my service mesh, yeah, here what I'm facing issues with my adapters. So the required adapters are not listing here, and when I click on randomly,
Cool. Yeah, makes sense.
adapter is not configured. So yeah, I'm not able to fix it.
Gotcha. This is a known, cool, good. We should work on our contributor docs to make sure that it's clear that, like, that's because you're not running any adapters, basically. And so the adapters are, so we'll get you some assistance. Let's not do it right now.
Okay, sure.
But there's no question you'll be over this hump in no time.
Okay.
And so just briefly, because it takes like 5 seconds to say it, you'll want to go build and run on one of the adapters or deploy it as a container.
Run and run directly the adapters.
Yep. Yep. If that doesn't make sense, we'll get you some help. Good. Any other feedback for Gaurav?
I guess we can move on to the next item. So yeah, Ali.
Question, Navendu, the filter endpoints in Meshery server, are those present today?
I don't think the PR has been merged yet, but yeah, I made both PRs. So only the deploy part is remaining. The rest of the CRUD commands are done.
Cool. Okay.
So next up, I guess we have Abhishek. We'll be doing a demo on auto connecting Grafana and Prometheus. So Abhishek, do you want to share your screen?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just share my screen.
Okay, great.
My screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, cool. So in order to save time, I just say what I have done. Basically, I've started Meshery. Uh, basically, you can see that my operator is installed and it's running. And I'm running Istio adapter with, and like basically that's it. So these are all the components that are installed inside my cluster. I can also verify them basically. Okay, in my Istio system namespace. Yeah, so my control plots and all of them are running, which is basically shown here. So I have my Grafana and Prometheus instances running inside. The agenda for this demo is that basically the Grafana and Prometheus instances will be getting auto connected when dashboard comes up. So as you can see, the endpoints are already being connected here. I'll go ahead and remove it first. And
Abhishek, what type of deployment is this?
yeah, so this I'm running it from local, but the changes are already merged in the container.
Okay, so okay, and then all right. What type of Kubernetes system are you running?
It's Docker desktop right now.
Okay.
But irrespective of all of these configurations, it will work because once the operator is up, everything else will work fine.
Okay.
So basically, I had removed the endpoints, and then when I navigated back to this page, it got reconnected again. So if someone missed it, I can basically. So I remove all the configuration. It's all fresh, and then it gets auto connected. And let's say, for example, if I'm in this page and I don't have this, if I refresh in here, it still gets auto connected and initializes one of the boards, which right now doesn't have any data, but yeah. So basically, that's how it works. So even for Prometheus, you just refresh it and it just auto initializes. Uh, yeah, so okay, I can see some error message which is false positive, but I'll check where is it and get it removed. Yeah, so basically that's the that's for the demo. The metric endpoint gets auto initialized. Any questions
Samir,
from anybody?
Samir, I know you have questions here. I'll ask for Samir, which which is Abhishek. That seems wonderful. So wonderful, it almost seems magical. Like, what happens if I have multiple um, Prometheus or Grafana instances running in my environment?
Yeah, it basically as in it functionally registers everything, but I'm not sure if we support registering multiple at the same time. So I can show you what exactly I'm talking about here. So basically, we've got this Grafana endpoint where we register all the control plane elements. So right now it gives these two as the available add-ons, and it will give more if more are available. So yeah, basically how much ever is available in this endpoint, it will try to initialize all of them.
Okay. Be more specific if you would. You mean initialize, like we would expect to see multiple adapter chips? Or I'm sorry, not adapter, multiple UI chips here?
Uh, I'm I'm skeptical about the multiple UI because in here we only allow for registering only one.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not sure if we'll see them, but it will register all of them. Like what
Okay.
I mean is that in the backend it will get registered, but the chips won't be visible.
Is it possible to deploy Istio to, or a second, if you try to deploy another Grafana right now to a different namespace, will the adapter override the namespace that you've provided?
Adapter override the namespace. No, so I can try that 1 second.
Okay.
So let me just install it, and let's say system, let's call it, and I install Grafana Prometheus.
So, Samir, last time we met, you had some questions around the utility. Is Samir on? No. Well, he had some questions around the utility of the performance results, the performance tests, the way that Meshery does performance characterizing and the way it's graphing. And I don't think, he hadn't seen the integration between Meshery and Grafana yet. And so I think he's having audio trouble. That's why he dropped.
Okay. So basically, we cannot override the namespace from adapter for add-ons because we make it strict that it should go to is the system in case of
Okay.
So, should I run another adapter and check?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah, I mean, it's something to follow up on.
Sure.
But so Vijay, I know you'd given consideration to this particular, concept in the past, and it's kind of riddled with, network connectivity, challenges, because in your environment you might deploy, you might have a bunch of different environments deploying different things, Grafana to different places, and so the reachability is a concern. And so, Abhishek, it sounds like a lot of those concerns were handled in Meshkit.
Yeah, basically all of them from Meshery.
Actually, don't mind, I have a couple of questions. So the question is, Grafana and Prometheus, they're being used for performance and then the graphing of the performance, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, like basically metrics.
Okay. So if you have multiple instances of Prometheus and Grafana, what difference would it make to the performance of a mesh, of a service mesh, and how would it make the graphing of that performance any different? Would your performance and your graphing wouldn't depend upon your measurements and your it is inherent to the service mesh and not the graphing and the measurement devices. I mean, if I can use that word. So that is the question. And the thing is, I was just curious, can you have like a drop-down box? I mean, where you have the different instances of Meshery and Prometheus that you might, I mean, I don't know if that's in keeping with the general look and feel of the user interface, but just a couple of questions.
Yeah, so for the second question, we do have a drop down already. Like basically, that's the previous behavior, and we just added auto initialization over it. To answer the first one, actually, it depends on a lot of other factors, but like basically, multiple promises instances where they are configured to pull metrics from and etc. So they really like they're just a visualization tool, so they don't affect any performance or any factor from inside. any applications, but basically they can show different data or they can show the same data depending upon their configurations.
So the question is, should the configuration be attached to the individual instances of Prometheus and Grafana, or should it be should it be a static configuration that you attach to an available instance of Prometheus and Grafana? See, because if you're seeing different statistics and different graphs with the same service mesh, which one are you going to take? I mean, that would be very, very ambiguous, right? How will you know whether what you're seeing is really the actual thing?
No. So what I meant is that basically Prometheus and Grafana have their own configs. Like basically, the configs would include that where to pull metrics from and what are the parameters to show and etc. So uh, like that, we don't do anything or we don't configure anything in Prometheus or Grafana instances. We just pull up their data and then just visualize it in the dashboard.
Well, no, actually, that's exactly the point, right? See, the thing is, you want to see the performance. It's not that somebody's showing this to you and saying, hey, this is fine. And you're going to say, oh, yeah, you're right. See, the thing is, so the application of the configuration should be in the hands of the person who's going to look at the performance results, right? I'm not going to take somebody else's word and say, hey, this is great, and say, and I say, yeah, sure, I agree. Yeah, it looks great. See, the thing is, you want to set up your criteria and see if it passes your criteria. So I think you should be able to assign the configuration to whatever it is that you're trying to measure. You see, maybe I'm going off base here. First of all, these are not subjects that I have a lot of knowledge on, but just a couple of thoughts, if I'm wrong, if whenever you have time, if you can tell me why what I'm thinking is not correct, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. So basically, Grafana and Prometheus does not measure performance, but rather it just shows just the metrics of the real-time metrics of whatever is going on inside. Prometheus basically pulls the data and Grafana basically displays the data. It's nothing more than a mere display tool. So uh, the configuration is basically it belongs to the owner who created those instances. Basically, in this case, it's Istio. So it would belong to Istio and it will be controlled and configured by Istio. And there can be many more other instances, for example, Linkerd or any other service mesh or even independent Prometheus or Grafana. So it actually depends on who the owner is, and we definitely are not owner. We just facilitate a interface to view all these metrics and uh, like compare them and do operations over them.
Uh, Actually, I'm not understanding it. I'm not getting it. I still think I should be in control of what I'm looking at. Uh, uh, I guess I need to understand this better to know what exactly is going on. But I'm not being able to understand how somebody else can set up the configuration, how you can have multiple instances and you get different views of the same service mesh. And I'm just not understanding.
So you won't get this multiple different views of the same service mesh. You'll get different views of different service meshes. Say, for example, this particular instance of Grafana will show you the view for Istio, and another instance would, like a different instance would show for Linkerd, and they are basically maintained and configured by their own service mesh, which is Istio and Linkerd.
So you're saying that it is showing you the performance of that particular service mesh. Is that what you're saying? So each
Oh,
instance.
It's not performance; it's metrics.
Right. Yeah. So each instance is showing uh, the metrics for that particular service mesh. Is it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Not exactly the service mesh, but the the components, basically each and every containers and whatever is running by whatever is run by the service mesh.
All right, okay.
Does anyone have any questions?
I'll just add real quick that Vijay's questions are well placed. That it's not that there's that this the functionality isn't robust in so much as users aren't given a lot of control over how many instances to connect to, how to control which charts to display against what service meshes. So some of that is that the metrics, the performance charts, are like implicitly Meshery already understands that certain charts are associated to specific service meshes, and so it makes sense that those charts are really only shown in context of those meshes. But the lack of control given to the user leaves them unconvinced, or leaves them there's more there's more controls to be provided right now. Like to your point, Abhishek, earlier, you're not sure if multiple Prometheuses or multiple Grafanas can be registered at the same time. They probably, like, no doubt something somewhere is going to break. As a matter of fact, inside of the architecture for Meshery, the object model that we have, it actually explicitly defines a one-to-one relationship. Well, at least between board configurations, those things that Meshery is going to show you, so a metrics board, and the configuration being specific to a Grafana instance, which is appropriate and will probably always be like that. The challenge is, well, how many board configurations can Meshery have, and how many is it capable of displaying, and on what UIs does it display what boards, is just things to be worked on. The step that you just took, Abhishek, is great. Like, you're just taking the existing functionality and helping people connect to it in a more automated fashion, like helping get them to it more quickly. Now, the functionality that's there about control over the boards and which metrics to show and et cetera, like, oh, okay, that there's improvement that needs to happen there, but sort of constrained to what you were trying to do about automating the connectivity. Like that's a big step, because most people who use Meshery don't ever get to the point that they're integrating with Grafana, and that's a big loss because there's a lot of insight that they can gain. So cool, good step, more steps to do.
Any other comments on this? So we almost have 10 minutes more. We have Jubril on the call. Jubril, do you want to talk about the GitHub Actions?
Yeah, sure. Hold on, let me share my screen.
So as Jubril shares his screen, to give a bit background on this, Meshery can be used to run SMI conformance test on a service mesh. So Jubril has been working on a GitHub action that does this, which can be incorporated into a CI/CD pipeline for a service mesh. So yes.
All right. So I hope it's my screen.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
All right. So the vendor has basically said everything. So the idea here is to be able to let other people run SMI performance tests in their CI/CD pipelines. Right now, I'm currently running everything sequentially, but the bigger goal here is to be able to make it something like this, where you could go to the GitHub Actions marketplace and then use it, the action in your pipeline, then it should look something like this, where users will be able to pass in their authentication token and a few other options I'm still working on, and then they could easily run tests against their clusters. Yeah, that's basically it. I'm facing a few problems right now, but that's a quick update on what I'm working on.
Nice. Who's got questions for Jibril? I've got Jibril. I've got a number of them, but I'll hold off considering that I think Austin has a little bit to show us in the remaining 5 minutes. Jibril, I'll say that I'm excited for this in so much as maybe we'll end up with one action that can perform a number of different Meshery CTL commands. And actually, this can be used in a few different ways. One, for end-to-end functional tests. That will be great. That will improve the confidence of our releases, of Meshery releases. Actions like this can also be taken and given to other service mesh teams so that they can, or well, it doesn't have to be service mesh teams. Basically, anyone who wants to run a conformance test or a performance test and integrate that into their CI pipeline, specifically if their pipeline or part of their pipeline is in GitHub. So this is greasing the wheels for Meshery to be used more broadly, literally bringing it to a new marketplace. Important work.
Thank you.
So, hurry up and get done. It's important work, and I'm totally joking about hurrying up. It actually will be, Nginx is an example of, they've emailed twice this last week saying, hey, we want to use this, how can we use it? And so pretty soon I'm just going to tell them what color your car is, where you park it. That way they can go over and scratch their keys in the side, just waiting for it. Anyway, it'll get used, so that's great. Good work.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also really looking forward to that GitHub action. So we have 4 minutes left, and Austin, the floor is all yours.
Hello everyone. So I'll be showing and demonstrating the latest designs we currently have for the Meshery notification system. So this is like our fourth iteration of the notification system so far. And so finally gotten one that works, looks good both in design, the user experience, and the accessibility, because we checked for everything with regards to opinions we got last demonstration. So these are current ones. We have both the light scheme of the info alerts, the dark scheme, the dark success, the light success color scheme, and the light error scheme, and the dark warning scheme. So this is the update currently have, which gives the user in the future the ability to switch between colors, and hopefully by then we perfect that ability, giving the user the control to switch between colors and have like freedom to receive the notification as he or she deems fit. So this is the current presentation of the Meshery notification system alerts. We'll be proceeding to create the main containers for the notification system itself. These are just part of the building blocks, and I thought it would be necessary to give the community updates on it.
So, a couple of comments. I don't know if Austin said this. I think every time that someone goes to present, I end up having multiple chats. So I apologize if this is a repeat, but what Austin was in part showing is the future toward the ability for a user to select between color schemes, like having a dark mode, if you will, and which is always nice for us engineers. Also, the legibility is improved based on the complementary colors that he's worked on. And I think at this point, one thing that maybe Austin didn't just say is, well, that design is ready, or which is to say there's a call for volunteer for someone who wants to get their hands dirty with Meshery UI. That's a great place to start, because this isn't so much about building out new functionality in the UI as much as it is about gaining familiarity with material UI and Meshery UI and color scheming, like updating existing components to match the design that's there. One thing, Austin, as you like, I'm hoping you might get to this next step where those toaster notifications, those are much improved. That's what you just have shown. Adjacent to that and associated to that is the notification center itself, which is maybe next at bat, like it.
That's the next. The toaster notification were just the first building block, because they were the main challenges we've been having in the design, and now that they're out of the way, we can now focus on building their main system.
Nice. So, Navendu, we're right at the top of the hour, but we might want to say hi to Ayush.
Yeah, Ayush, are you here? Is this your first time on the call?
Mr. Raj, Ayush.
While we wait for that, do you want to, Lee, do you want to like give a quick update on the V 0.6 release?
Yeah, I'd like to, if I if I felt like that was well in hand. Maybe I'll say this, that so if for those of you who've been paying attention, and I think all of you on the call have been, there have been a couple of point releases from the major release that was done of Meshery v0.50. That was a big fat release with new architectural components. Coming out of a release like that, really it was worthy of a major release. We're just not ready to 1.0 yet. That you would expect. There's a few follow-up items to both fix some bugs that fall out as users go to, take advantage of the new features. But then also as we work toward, the V06, there's some new functionality coming forth, notably patterns and filters, the ability to manage those and apply them. We also had recently our first CVE, our first security vulnerability reported. And so that's been disclosed. There's someone has in the last week done an analysis of Meshery's adapters on Docker Hub and helped identify that the Octarine adapter, has, and we knew it at the time, is just compiled into the Golang. It has some AWS tokens in there. I guess those have a challenge of getting exposed in the Docker image. So those AWS credentials are not exposed in the repo for the Octarine adapter, but they are included probably as environment variables inside the adapter image. So anyway, more security, more people getting interested in working on security around the project, which is great. That's one thing. And then other than that, we're 3 minutes over. So the last thing to just think on is, well, one, if anyone would like to do this on the call, if anyone would like to go update the roadmap to just format this a little bit better, there's a missing bullet point there and there. Please do that. Go make your mark, I guess, literally. But in V060, the plan had been performance profiles, patterns, and those are being achieved. Utkarsh, probably next week, we might want to have an update on patterns based on some of the work that you'll be doing. The performance profiles, they actually sort of half landed in V050 and are being enhanced really around Meshery CTL, probably in V060. So the roadmap for all of you who are kind of unfamiliar, right now it's broken down between Meshery server and sort of Meshery overarchingly, and then it's command line client. Now, following that same paradigm, we probably should get to a point where we're tracking Meshery UI and its roadmap. The reality is, like, the majority of the time, we should be able to, as a community, get to the point where if we're saying, patterns will be delivered, or this feature will be delivered, that means that and VJ has pointed this out before, but it means that the feature is, holistically delivered. There's user documentation, API documentation, probably a UI for it, some backend implementation, like, the whole thing. So in some respects, I think that the further that we as a community and Meshery as a project matures, we might be able to just consolidate the roadmaps to just be, a single one, because they should be in concert with one another. Boy, that might be a fantasy that we would ever arrive there. But it's a good fantasy to have. It is possible. Okay. That's just kind of a quick touch point, I think, on how far along we are. So we're if we keep filters to a V070, then actually the 60 is really not too far off now. We're not too far away from this. And by too far, I mean 4 weeks or less. Cool. Yeah, and so one of VJ's questions was just about, if the project brings forth light and dark color modes, or, that there is a burgeoning set of user preferences that when you're in the Meshery UI, that you click on your user profile, your avatar, and there's some preferences in there. There's just a few, but that seems like that would be a logical place to expose that type of control to the user. So good question, VJ. Devendu, that's all I've got.
Awesome. We are 7 minutes late, so I guess it's time to wind up the call. Thank you everyone for joining, and I guess I'll see most of you Friday on the community call. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.